From the headquarters of the Guild of Champions, this is the Chris Terrell Podcast, and I am your host, Chris Terrell, and welcome to another week of your weight loss quest. How did this last week go for you, champion? What new challenges did you encounter? What failure did you go through? But more importantly, what I'm more interested in is, what lesson did you get from that failure? Come on now. Don't go through a failure without getting your lesson. That's your reward for your troubles, by the way. Now, if you're new here, I've lost 125 pounds myself after an entire adulthood of chronic yo-yo dieting. Up, down again, before I finally got sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I made some permanent, meaningful, and actual changes to my lifestyle, habits, routines, to my environment, to my community, and to my system of beliefs, because all of those things is what creates my life. And I wanted to start living an entirely different life. You see, that's what I really meant when I said I wanted to lose weight. When I said at 290 pounds, I want to lose weight, what I meant was I want to change my life. And I thought in times past that losing weight would change my life. Come to find out, I was wrong. That in fact, losing weight does not change your life, but changing your life could result in you losing weight. And that's what happened to me. I changed my life. I did things I had never done before for an extended and prolonged period of time, and I began to get results I had never previously achieved. I had to start thinking in terms of years instead of days and weeks. When I began to think of my life in those terms and started thinking of decisions in those terms, my life started to change. There's something to be said about persistence. There's something to be said about just never giving up and just continuing to move forward no matter what. Today marks season 8, episode 1 of the Chris Terrell Podcast. I divided it up into 25 episode seasons. They mean nothing other than I just wanted to have, for me, some way to sense like I have these significant markers. And every season I set off on a new journey wondering, what am I going to learn from the past season? How am I going to change? How is the podcast going to change? How is my life going to change? And now I got another 25 episodes staring down. This season felt long. I felt this one. A lot happened in this season. And a lot happened in the past one. And I'm really excited for this first one coming up. But today, what I want to do is I want to talk to you about, I just have some thoughts. I got some thoughts in my head. I don't necessarily want to fill up a whole episode with any one of them, but I just want to talk about them. Is that okay? Today, can I just take you on a little ride through my brain where I can talk about some topics relating to weight loss that I just don't talk about very often? Because there's just some certain ways that I look at things. I'm often approaching it as I am attempting to give advice to the person in front of me. Well, sometimes I have really good advice and no one ever needs it in the person in front of me. And that's not because a lot of people don't need it. I only can talk to so many people a week and it's not a high number. So it's just like, I just haven't got there. Because I'm regularly with one-on-one people being like, oh my gosh, I have not got to talk about this. I'm so excited I get to talk about this with you. That regularly happens. But there's some topics I've just been waiting. And no one's asking yet. And I'm like, you know what? Here's the thing. There are questions, if I'm honest, I didn't know to ask. Like if I were to rewind the clock and put me back in my beginning body, in the beginning of this journey, I didn't even know what questions to ask. I didn't know what it was I didn't even know. Like there are some lessons I learned only with the benefit of hindsight. There were things I did in the first 6 months of my journey that were crucial, vital to my success. And I didn't understand it for like 3 years. It was only then when I had learned enough that I could look back to my past and be like, oh, that makes sense. I wasn't lucky. I was unconsciously competent. I got something right and I didn't even know it. Like, that's why it's so important. You got to learn about weight loss. Like, you got to study it. You got to research it. I am constantly learning new things about weight loss. I am constantly learning new things about my body. I am constantly learning new things about me. You're never done learning. No matter how much you think you know, there is more that is not known than what you do know. It's just, seriously, I one time knew a guy, this is when I was a kid, and I was learning about like PhDs and what does it take to get a PhD. Like my mind was beginning to be awakened to this. So I would have been 17, 16. And I was learning about a thesis, and I was learning your project that you work on. And So there was a guy in my church, and I asked him, his name's Bruce, and I was like, so what did you do it? And I don't remember exactly what it was, but I remember it was some really obscure small thing with bugs. I don't remember what it was, but I just remember thinking like, that is the most obscure, oddly specific thing I've ever, I don't know that I've ever would have thought of that. And I'm like, you're still learning about that? And that's when my brain started clicking and understanding the concept that like, there's always more to learn, because every time you learn something, you just unlock more questions. The learning creates more questions. So like, let's say you learn one thing and it unlocks 3 questions. And let's say each one of those questions unlocks 3 more questions. And then let's say all of those answers unlock more questions. Like it very quickly, you realize there's a lot you don't know. There's a lot you don't know. And I constantly am thinking about this with weight loss. I'm like, oh, there's so much to know. And there's so much I've learned. And there's so much I don't know. But because of that, I sometimes forget that, like, if I were sitting down having a conversation with myself in the beginning of my journey, like now, knowing what I know now, but if I could like talk to him, we couldn't talk about weight loss the same way, because I just know things that I just didn't know back then. So I want to tell you about some of them. Some of the things that I realized, like I was 100%, I got it right by mistake, or I got it right, but it is not for the reasons I perceived at the time. Right? I have learned things. One of the things I learned that is so important is the importance of joining my free Facebook group. If you are not in that, you need to navigate over to christerrellcoaching.com and join my free Facebook group. I want you to come over there. And the next important thing is that you come over to my YouTube channel. There'll be a link to that in the bio, or not bio, haha. There'll be a link to that in the show notes. You can go check it there. Or you could just search for Chris Terrell Coaching on YouTube and you'll find it there. Like last week's podcast episode, or 2 weeks ago. It's all a blur now. Anyway, one of them, I live streamed it, the podcast episode. So you can go watch like a behind the scenes of the podcast being done. It's kind of fun. And then I stayed on after and like asked questions. I almost did that today. So head on over to the YouTube. Okay. Now that I got that out of the way, let's actually get to what I was going to tell you. That I was setting it up and then I realized, oh wait, crap, I forgot to do the housekeeping and the admin stuff. Let me sneak it in now. I'm excited. Standards. My standards for my life 5+ years ago were shite. They were terrible. I had just the lowest standards for what I deemed acceptable. Like I look back at old pictures of me and I'm like, fuck, man, shave, wash your hair, like tidy it up a little bit more. You know, go on a walk. Like I look at my old self, I'm like, your standards were so low for yourself. I could say that now, looking back at myself, because I compare them to my today's standards, which are notably higher standards, right? And so I had in my life, what I started doing in the beginning of my journey, I started setting new standards for myself. As an example, I decided I think I need to stop staying up till 2 a.m. I had to stop staying up till 2 a.m. So I started setting a bedtime, started thinking like I need sleep. I want to start getting full nights of sleep. And so I elevated my standard. But now I'm like, try to go to bed at like 9:30. I love going to bed. It's great. Going to bed's the best. But like, you know, then I was like starting at 2 a.m. So I didn't jump to 9. That took like 4 years. I like went from like 2 a.m. to midnight. Like that was a big accomplishment for me. That was shaving 2 whole hours of my life to give it back to sleep, which I thought was a meaningless waste of time. Like I was like, well, I could be playing video games with that time. I could be watching TV with this time. I could watch a whole damn movie with that time. There's so many movies to see. Like I'm just gonna go sleep. Seems like lame. I don't want to get up in the morning because tomorrow sucks. We're gonna get back to that. So anyway, that was a big deal, going from 2 a.m. to midnight. And then I worked it from 12 midnight to like 11:30. The increments began to get smaller, much faster. And then one day I woke up and realized I've been getting a lot of full night's rests. I'm waking up at 6 a.m. and I'm not tired. Turns out, when you get enough sleep and you go to bed early enough and your circadian rhythm syncs up with it, I can get up at 6 a.m. Go figure. It just took me like 4 years of like really just like pounding it, like just really working on that sleep. I mean, I tried so many different things to get my sleep under control. I did take Ambien there for a while, like 100%. Like getting down from the dem to the midnight, that was an Ambien thing that helped me get there. But surprisingly, it was hard to have the discipline to make myself take the Ambien because I knew once I took it, I was going to sleep. Like There wasn't an option. In 20 minutes, I was going to be going to sleep. And so it's like, I wouldn't take it. Like I would have it and I wouldn't take it because I didn't want to go to sleep. So I had to start sucker punching myself to sleep. And I didn't like that, to be honest. Like I didn't like when I looked at myself in the mirror, I wasn't proud of the fact that the only way I could go to sleep was to have a pharmaceutical concoct me to sleep. And so I transitioned off of it. And it took a while. And that's why the increments, I think, were a lot slower after that point. But the sleep journey was a big one. I mean, it was a real big one for me. And I totally attribute my success of my weight loss journey to getting sleep because my brain started working better. I started feeling more emotionally regulated. And later, I've learned that turns out getting good sleep regulates your hormones. So go figure. And turns out our bodies run off that shit. Like hormones are like all the rage in our body. And when you're sleeping well, they work better. Go figure. Turns out when you're eating a well-balanced diet and not getting garbage in it, your hormones work even better. Go figure. Turns out when you exercise, it makes your hormones work better. Go figure. I mean, there's all sorts of things I started doing. And the more I started researching weight loss, I'm like, oh, it helps your hormones. Wow, shit, really? Oh, maybe that stuff's not wrong, but maybe like the brain, you need to balance your hormones. I know. That's what exercise and diet, sleep, hydration, food, that's what all that's for. Do that stuff. So, but my standards on my bedtime changed. Another thing that changed for me, standards on desserts. My dessert standards are real high now. Like, if I'm going to have a dessert, it better be just absolutely fucking delicious. It needs to be such a tasty dessert. I am not having boring ice cream. I am not having a sheet cake from the grocery store. I'm just not going to eat it. It's not worth it, right? I just looked at my standards and I said, not good enough. I eat good dessert. I actually care. Like, I'm not, like, if you eat any cake, you don't care about cake, right? If you are going to be picky because you're like, I want good cake and I'll have acceptable cake, well, that's fine, right? Like, you know, same with pizza. There's acceptable pizza out there and there's garbage pizza. I no longer eat CC's. Why? Because it's garbage. It is garbage pizza. I will eat other pizzas. And if I can't get decent pizza, I won't eat pizza. So, but back to the desserts thing. So elevating my standards for desserts surprisingly resulted in me eating a lot less desserts because really good quality desserts are also more expensive and I'm stingy. So yeah, like that helped. But also my rules on when I can have dessert. I had to set a rule with myself that I can't have dessert for breakfast. Like I can't have cake for breakfast. I had a problem. I would eat cake for breakfast. Like, you know, that bit from that one comedian, I won't use his name, but he talks about using chocolate, chocolate cake for the kids. And he's like, Dad is great, gave chocolate cake. Like he does that whole dance and ditty. When I was watching that, I remember, again, before when I did watch his stuff, if you know who he is, you know who he is. But I was like, yes, chocolate cake for breakfast. This sounds awesome. I mean, I was totally, if there was cake in the house, I'd have it for breakfast. I mean, I'd probably also still have breakfast. But yeah, like I had to look at my life like that and just say, I'm no longer okay with me doing this. I'm no longer okay with me doing this. Now, let me say something real quick, just on a little side here. You should be able to set a standard for yourself. And with a little persistence over several months, maybe even a year or two, you should be able to get yourself to change. Right? You should be able to do it. Like, it would be unreasonable, though, to ask you to, like, always be able to just elevate your standard and change in a week or two. Like, you are asking too much of yourself if you're doing that. Will you occasionally stumble onto something that you can elevate your standard and you will instantly just do better with? Yes, you will. There will be some things like that. Chances are it's probably because you didn't really give a shit. Like you just didn't really care either way. But you'll find that some things, like, me going to the movie theaters, not getting multiple tubs of popcorn, that was a hard sell. That was a hard ask, right? That was a big deal. I had to gradually work my way from that, to keep myself okay with it. Because if I took it away too fast, I would trigger something called reactance. Psychological reactance. It's a thing I learned about later that I didn't know can happen in weight loss. And because I was gentle with myself, I was not triggering it. A big part of why I failed in the past I gave up and quit my weight loss journeys in the past was I would be like, yeah, fuck it. But what I was getting was psychological reactance in many cases where my brain was pushing back on what was happening. I felt like my freedom of choice was being restricted, or I felt like my autonomy was being removed, or I felt like I was being told what to do. And sometimes it was, even though it was the diet, but I'm not going to let this diet tell me what to do. But also, like, because reactance gets triggered when you're being told to let go of something that you like. I liked staying up till 2 a.m. playing video games. Y'all, I liked it. That's why I did it. I wasn't like secretly the whole time playing video games. I wish I couldn't be here doing this. Oh, I wish I could stop. No, one more round. Come on, Arissa, pull it together for me, girl. Like, no, I wasn't doing that. I was like, one more round. Yeah, fuck yeah, that's so good. All right, come on. What time is it? Yeah, I can still get up. All right, one more round. I can do one more round. I got one more. I mean, I had to drag myself from that computer. I mean, I wanted to do it. I wanted to eat the food. I wanted to sit still and do nothing. I wanted to. I cannot stress enough how much I wanted to do it. That's why I did it. And if I had asked myself to suddenly go from playing video games till way late in the night, 7 days a week, and then somehow, weirdly enough, I couldn't get up to be on time to work, but I could get my ass up early on a Saturday to go play video games, set that aside. If I had asked myself to go from my 20 to 30 hour a week video game hobby to a 5 hour a week video game hobby, I would have rebelled. I know, because I've tried that before and I always rebelled. Now, I could ask myself to do that, but I also don't play video games for 30 hours a week. So, if I'm playing 30 hours video games a week, I very well might be exactly the same way. So, y'all, this is where you got to recognize, like, ease yourself back. Ease yourself back from your extremes. So if you are constantly having dessert, like every night, you're like a 1 or 2 dessert kind of person every day. Hey, I know I'm not alone in that. I know I'm not alone in that I would have 2 desserts. Like I might have ice cream and a separate dessert. Sometimes I'd have 3rd desserts. Like, right? Like 7 days a week. So if you're doing that, asking yourself to go to none desserts or just on Fridays, fuck no, you're not. I mean, maybe some of y'all occasionally will do it. Maybe. But the odds are, the reality is you are in the extreme minority. Most of you, if you have to suddenly give up a whole bunch, are going to freak out. So ease back. Do it slowly. That's what I did. When on my journey, I finally decided we're just going to do this stuff as slow as we can. Because it doesn't matter. I'm going to be alive for a long time. I'm not dying anytime soon, so I can take my sweet time. Slowly losing weight is much better than slowly gaining weight. And if I'm going to do one or the other, let's do slowly losing weight, right? So anyway, elevating the standards as my dessert was a big one, and I had to gently bring my weight down. Another standard that changed, big one, is how I will talk about myself to others or to myself. That one was actually a pretty quick one. Something happened when my dad died that flipped a switch in my head. I don't understand to this day why. I have theories. I don't know. But whatever, something happened in my life where I started giving way less of a shit about what anybody else thought. Yeah, I just suddenly stopped caring. So I don't really know how to tell you how to get to that place. My pathway that I got there was through a trauma. And is it a trauma of this particular kind? Maybe. Is it any kind of a trauma created this response to me? I don't know. I have no idea. I just know before my dad died, I very much was crippled in my life by worrying about what other people think of me and how they perceive me. And then something happened in about 2 months and I no longer gave a shit about anybody's opinion of me. But the reason why that's important is that was effectively a standard increase. Lots of people find themselves to where I am. Lots of people do. Like it's a normal thing. It's something a lot of people go through in their 30s or 40s. Some people, they go through it in their 50s and 60s. Some of y'all are late bloomers. You're doing it in your 70s and 80s and 90s. Congrats. Like we all do it. We all find ourselves in a place where we're just like, I don't care what you think about how I'm living my life. I'm not hurting your ability to live, so you can get out of mine. And I understand it. But again, that I can tell you this though. That mentality switch, whoa, my life got way easier, like way easier. You know why? Because then when somebody offends me, I don't have a problem not being around them. Like, I don't care. I don't need you to like me. Like, your approval of me is not necessary. And so that, like, it happened. So that way, when my boss yelled at me one time, like the very first time, and I had set the standard for myself that I will no longer tolerate people yelling at me at work. As soon as it happened, I was like, well, guess I'm leaving. Like, and I hated it right there. I felt everything inside. My body was like, we don't want to get a new job. We don't want to go somewhere. But instantly I knew, like, nope, boundary crossed. You did it once, you'll do it again. And if you do it twice, you'll do it thrice. And if you do it thrice, you'll keep doing it. And I'm powerless to make you stop. So, and I've watched you do it to others. You're going to do it to me. So I'm going to leave. I mean, that's it. I would not have reacted that way. I know, because I have had other bosses yell at me, scream at me. And I stayed and I just took it. And I never once considered quitting because of it. You know, I just thought, well, what do I got to do to make him stop yelling at me? You know, I just took the poor me road. That's what I always did every time before. But then when I suddenly took I don't care what you think. And if you're going to treat me that way, well, then I'm going to do what's necessary on my end. And I'm going to quit at my convenience. I mean, I didn't quit right away. Come on, y'all. I'm not dumb. I took 6 months because I stopped doing things in a hurry. Weight loss journey taught me that. If you're always in a hurry, you're always panicking. But if you go really, 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 really slow, you have lots of time to think things through, and it's really easy. It just requires patience. But anyway, but that was stopping to care. That helped though with weight loss also, because it made it a lot easier to not worry about me eating differently in front of people, like me eating my own thing. Now, again, I want to add, this was a very sudden shift, but it definitely happened in waves. Like, it wasn't like right now in life, I'm much more comfortable in my own skin than I've ever been. Like, I don't think that there's ever been a time that I've been alive than right now where I am as comfortable with who I am and just couldn't possibly care any less what people think about me. I mean, it's just, I'm very comfortable with how I'm living my life. The only people's opinion of me who matters to me is my wife and stepkids. That's it. That's it. The rest of it is like, I'm going to live my life my way on my terms, because my way of doing it's not harming anybody's ability to live their life. But there was a sudden shift right after my dad died. I mean, sudden. And so it was a big change. Like, my life started to transform almost immediately, because all of a sudden I started reacting differently. But there were different, what you could think of them like characters in a video game, higher powered people in my mind, so to speak, that it took me a good 6 months to a year before I finally like really started not caring. And that's because I kind of had this big whoosh where like just casual everyday people no longer cared. People I just met and I'll probably never see again, don't care. And I started seeing like, oh, wait a minute. I'm still going to be a nice person. I'm still going to be me. I'm me. It's so much easier to be me without having to try to figure out what I got to be to everybody around me to make them happy. You know, just be myself. And if they don't like me because I'm being the authentic me, well, then I guess we're not going to be friends. That's okay. I mean, I had no intentions of being friends with everybody anyway. And then that would expand out. So if you're going on your own self-confidence journey and you are working your way through the process of like, I'm no longer caring what people think, hey, it's okay if it's taking a year or two, 3 years, 4 years. It's okay. Like, this takes time. Knowing what I know about myself now, without that sudden shift from my dad, this probably would have taken longer. I mean, you know, this is one of the silver linings that have come out of my father's passing. You know, he was always the find the silver lining in everything thing, and I committed to myself when he died that I was going to find the silver linings, as many as I could, and finding them all the time. Just found that one right there as I'm talking here on the podcast. That was kind of fun. All right, the other thing though, I'm going to shift gears here the last little bit. There's another thing that I got right that I talk about some in my guild, but I don't get to talk about a lot because I don't know. It's just not something that I have it with some people in a conversation, but not as often as I really want. But I'm always working on understanding how to make weight loss work in a way that I can convey it to somebody else. Like, weight loss is easy, but explaining the mentality and the paradigm to another person in a concise way is hard. I mean, it took me years to adopt a new mindset. It took me years to adopt a new paradigm, a new way of looking at myself, a new way of looking at the world. I'd get these little sudden surges and little every now and then epiphanies, sure, but it was very much like a marathon, you know, step by step by step by step by step by step by step. You know, it was very much like that. You know, just you wake up and you're like, oh, I'm somewhere totally different, but I guess I just walked here. But using the benefit of hindsight and looking at weight loss and studying and understanding the psychology of weight loss my passion and my full-time job, I started just looking at people. Like, what makes people work? What makes people change? How do people get through things? And I've always been trying to figure it out for myself too, though. I mean, I started learning that achieving a goal doesn't bring you lasting fulfillment, because I had achieved several. I mean, I had achieved unachievable goals in my mind, like losing all the weight, getting down to 165 pounds. That seemed unachievable. You might as well have asked me to become an astronaut. That seemed just as likely. And I achieved it. And I didn't feel any more fulfilled than I did a week earlier, when I was 107 pounds. I had achieved my career goals and I didn't feel a lasting fulfillment. And I started to realize, like, this using goals to provide myself fulfillment, it's like assuming that I'm going to take a shower so good I'll never need to shower again. I was like, no, I'm going to need another shower tomorrow. And then I'll need another, maybe I can go a couple days, but I'm going to need another shower. And so I started seeing that a part of why I was successful with weight loss is I dropped goals. And I'm telling you, I've applied this to the rest of my life. And maybe if y'all are interested in it, I can talk about it. Maybe I'll do it on YouTube or something. But I can talk about how this discovery has completely revolutionized my life in every way. But learning how to live a goalless life while still having goals has brought me so much freedom and peace. But on my weight loss journey, I didn't set what you might call traditional goals. They were just intentions. This is what I want to do. This is who I want to be. I wanted to transform. I was setting, like, I'd like to lose 2 pounds, but it was, I would like to see myself become 2 pounds lighter. End of goal. No, in 2 weeks. No, by way of doing it this way. No, it was just, I want to see myself become 2 pounds lighter. Okay, go work the problem. And just work on it. And I kept trying to work on myself. I looked at my life as a series of systems. It's like a business. And it's like, wow, if somebody had come in and looked at my life as a company, no one would buy this mess. It is a hot mess. It was going to take some real work to fix this. The finances were all out of whack. The morale was all over the place. It was terrible, inconsistent. The different teams weren't working together. There was no structure, no cadence to anything. So it made any amount of improvement unknowable or difficult to see if it even happened at all. And that there was no leadership within me. I was the one responsible for my body, and I was being a poor leader of myself. And I realized on my weight loss journey, I got to start working on that. Like, I got to start leveling up my self-management skills. Like, I gotta start living my life better. And here's the problem is, if you'd looked at me from the outside, you might not have actually thought I was a hot mess. By all accounts, I was fine. I had a decent house. I had a couple of, my wife and I had a car. I had a decent job. I had a decent pay. I could go see my family. Like, by all accounts, you might think, he's doing fine. But I wasn't. Like, not at all. I wasn't at all doing fine. And I just kept hoping in the past that losing weight would fix that. And it was always disappointing when I'd lose weight and none of that stuff got better. Because I was an emotional eater. I ate to fix my feelings, to get me through things. I ate to make the good times better. I ate to pass the time. I ate so that I wouldn't have to talk to people. It's easy not to talk to somebody if you're just make sure you have food in your mouth. I loved sitting around. I love sitting. It was like my favorite thing, sitting. I love chairs. I love thinking about chairs. I love picking out a good chair and buying it. I love pillows. Still love pillows. I ain't giving that one up. But I just love being comfortable. I didn't want to be uncomfortable. And I wanted to eat what I wanted when I wanted. I didn't want to tell myself no. If I wanted it, I wanted to have it. Period. There's this feeling I'd get when I'd take the first couple of bites of a Bluebell, homestyle vanilla Bluebell ice cream with Hershey's chocolate syrup in it. There's a certain flavor palette. I can feel it. I can still close my eyes and imagine it now. How it hits my tongue. It's like an ecstasy kind of feeling for me. And I remember I'd sit there and I loved that feeling so much that I started learning how to recreate it, like with the perfect blend. And I would get a small amount of ice cream and then I'd just keep going back. Or I might get a big one, and then I would let the feeling go away. Because I discovered if you had too much ice cream, the feeling kind of, the taste went away. It wasn't as good. So I would stop. I would eat, I'd stretch the ice cream eating out throughout the evening so I could just keep maximizing my hit of my drug. But I'd fantasize about that throughout the day, of like, I can't wait till I get to be at home on my chair with my cold, big bowl of ice cream. And it's so cold, I got to hold it with a towel. Got my spoon. Chocolate syrup TV show, leather chair, reclining, power recliners. Let me recline this back. Air conditioner cranked to like 65. I got a little blanket in case it get a little chilly. I'm just going to eat this ice cream and watch my show with my nice sound and just disappear into all of it. And it's just going to be so nice. I just can't wait till I can do that. Like, this is what I think. I just imagine it when I get too stressed. I'd be like, that is waiting for me at the end of the day. I get to have that. Y'all, it was hard to give that up because I loved it. I did. Like I truly, truly did. And then I had to give it up because that sort of behavior, doing that, the fantasizing about the food to get myself through a hard time, that wasn't a recipe for good. That was not a key to happiness. That was not a key to wellness. I had to stop. I had to stop fantasizing like that. I had to stop letting myself do it. And in that, I discovered something. Come back to the present. You just take your mind away from the fantasy and come back to where you are now. And you just deal with whatever's there. The reason why I was escaping to that bowl of ice cream in the evening, in the middle of the day, in my mind, is because I didn't want to deal with what was there. And then at the end of the day, I didn't want to deal with it. I wanted to just forget about it. I just wanted to forget about it. Especially since I was a workaholic and I felt like if I had anything left in me, I should be giving it to work. And so if I just acted tired, it made it easy for me to give myself permission not to work. Because I'm too tired to work. I just can't. I got to rest. But don't worry. As soon as I feel better, I'm going to get right back to work. I had to stop that too. I'm going to wrap up here. It was good to talk to y'all. I'm looking forward to the next season of the Chris Terrell podcast. Don't know where it's going to go. Haven't known where it's going to go to date yet so far. Tried a few experiments this last season. It was kind of fun. I enjoyed the Q&A. And I've got a couple other ideas. I'm going to be shaking things up just because I think it's time. I think it's time to evolve. I've been coming around to the idea of this for a little bit. I got a good backlog waiting for you. If you just discovered the podcast today, go check it out. I got a good backlog. And I think at a certain point I'm going to shift. I don't know how it's going to shift. I don't know where it's going to shift. I think something's going to shift. We'll see where it goes. I'll see you next week on the Chris Terrell Podcast.